Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank Podcast. I'm back here with John. I told you we'd have you back because I need to know about the paranormal experiences that you obviously have run this whole site and done all these tours, and we've never talked about it because every time we've always talked about JFK, which I'm not mad at because I do like talking about JFK.
I love talking about JFK too. It always seems like we go back to that, but just want to talk about other stuff too, I guess, right?
So, how'd you get interested in this whole paranormal thing? And also, what's your view on the paranormal?
Well, I think with my paranormal walks, I do these in Buffalo. I've been doing this for like, I guess, 15 years now with these walks. And I do them Lockport, Hamburg, my hometown, Buffalo, of course. And I try to approach it with an open mind because not every story is obviously legitimate and true, but a lot of good things come my way. And today we're going to talk about a UFO report with the front page story from the Buffalo News. Some pictures from one of my ghost walks and a cool story of a demonic infestation case in Lockport. So I think like with this covers like the whole range of things here: UFO reports, infestation, ghosts. So the paranormal world can cover everything. That's kind of why I think I love the whole world. It's just anything with this world, so anything's possible to cover.
I think that's a good way to think of it. I've talked to a lot of people about the paranormal subject, and some of them like to lump the whole UFO factor in there and the eerie kind of unseen things in the sky or things that just they can't explain. And other people like to keep them a little bit separate. Do you believe there is an afterlife?
I actually want to talk about that. I was thinking about that today too. Thinking about it, like these, as you get older, you think about ways to prove the afterlife exists. And I think these are ways you can do this because, especially with demonic possession cases, these are things you can't explain with normal, everyday scientific explanations. So, even like with ghost reports, pictures of a ghost that we're going to look at later on, as you get older, you want proof that the afterlife exists. And I think ghost reports, demonic possession cases, infestation cases, UFOs, it kind of tells us that there's more than this world that's out there.
Like a thin layer between this world and another.
Right. The mortal coil has to go somewhere, I guess. And it seems like with the paranormal world, if you use a template of science in some cases, you can kind of prove that, like with demonic possession cases, you can see like if a person has epilepsy, do a test on them, see if they actually have mental illnesses. If they don't, then we have something unusual we can discuss that's more than just explained by just with someone's, they can't really explain it by anything else, but just must be a demon.
Before we get into the demonic possession stuff, I think we should probably hit the topic of your own personal experiences first and what you've experienced on your ghost walks. Only because for some reason there's an interest between everybody that have the same fascination with the paranormal subject. I think we all love those ghost hunter shows and things like that. I think it sparked up everybody's interest, and we all have a little bit of belief, even though if we don't discount it fully. I guarantee you, if you ask any friend, any person that you might meet on the street, have they ever had a paranormal experience? They'll say something like, I don't think I've had a paranormal experience, but there is this one time. And then they say something where they can't really give it a result or an explanation to that certain occurrence. So, where did your paranormal experiences start? And what have you just decided to go full in depth with when it came to doing your paranormal walks?
Yeah, I think with the walks, what we do with these, it's interactive. So I have with the walks, we bring with us meters, K2 meters. We also have communication devices from Big Bore Studios, and we have a lot of interesting messages that come through from the spooks. And also from my research, things happen on the walks as well. Often happens with these walks, old burial grounds tend to be where most of the activity ends up taking place. One of the places in Hamburg, for example, the last year of the walk, just this final walk that we did, this one man said he was leaving the burial ground and he had his left ear tugged 3 times, and that really spooked him out to say goodbye to for that year for the tours. So little things like that happen, and we can talk a bit more about pictures we had taken on the walks, and with the demon possession case, someone said you're a whore. I think that was probably from a demon. So that happens on the walk and can be upsetting, but it does happen.
Now, what's the most obvious or common thing that you've seen? And have you used technology to try and find or communicate. I know some people use certain types of metering devices and other things to be able to try and not invoke a voice or get something from the other side.
Yeah, I think with the techniques we do on the walks, it typically is working with voice recorders and having asking questions and getting some answers from the walks. For example, we had again on the burial ground, we had a person. Her father had just died the previous day, and the message that we got was from her father. He had a tattoo, and it said, "I like your tattoo. I miss you." So that was interesting. We got messages on this last year's walk. Sometimes they're very personal that we get from the spirits that come on and talk to us on the walks.
Have you had anybody experience sickness, whether it's mental confusion or physical exhaustion or some type of feeling of, vomit, nausea?
Yeah, we had one girl that um, she got kind of upset because we can get into this case a bit more in Lockport. I had three of my students that got scratched on the chest three different times right over here on their left breast. And this gets into the case when we get more in details and we get into it a little bit more. But they were, I think, attacked by some evil spirits on the walks. Another person had his coat ripped off his pocket. Another person had her back pushed. And we know when we walk, these things can happen. They're upsetting to some people, and others that just kind of go with it. But we know that if you go on these walks, there's a chance that we're going to have people that have these experiences, and I think they want it anyway. It gets added to the fun, I think.
So we're having physical abuse or physical damage being done to people. Now, is this like well known, like amongst the ghost community, like that this area has these types of reactions to it?
Yeah, I mean, people keep coming back. They keep getting large numbers every
I
year.
keep
Get
seeing
hundreds of
asylum videos. I'm like, there's got to be better places to go.
yeah. But I think with my hometown of Hamburg, they're very open to me being there. I grew up in Hamburg, New York, and I think the people there know I come back every October, and there's always something that happens every walk that makes it different and unique, and add some stories every year. I mean, just this past year, the local bookstore he contacted me that he had a little girl ghost that kept getting reported to the staff, and never saw it himself until one day. Sure enough, it was there in his third aisle and knocking books off. He also had two people come up to the counter. They actually left the store because they saw this little girl ghost there too. So things happen each year that get added into the walks, and I think it just as time goes on, I get more comfortable telling the stories to my hometown.
Now, were you always open about speaking about paranormal experiences, or did you find hesitancy? It seemed like within the last couple of years, I started seeing more people be open about the whole discussion. Also, the UFO discussion being added more to the mix, I think, because the government kind of acknowledged some things.
Yeah, I think as time goes on, this generation of, especially my students, I think I teach U.S. history too, and as my day job. So I think more interesting to them anyway is this unexplained sort of world that they kind of grew up with, the idea that UFOs and ghosts are things that just exist. They're not that difficult to talk about because in the generations, stigma was kind of attached if you were a ghost believer or UFO believer. But now I think you see more evidence has come forward, more research, and it's more easy to talk about these things that be labeled some conspiracy, not any longer.
I want to ask more about the idea of demonic possession. That gets brought up a lot, and it's kind of what the basis of most horror movies are. You don't see a lot of the ghost ones anymore, surprisingly. It's mostly been the concept of horror. I think it's like The Exorcist and the Polter. There's just these things that just kind of have always been a part of our culture, which I think instills belief and wonderment of the subject. It makes more people interested to go on ghost haunts and explore on their own. But what is your idea and thoughts on demonic possession? And do you come across that more than you do with the actual ghost experiences?
Yeah, I think this is when we actually can prove the afterlife existence because these demons, they exist in a different time. They're not human entities and they wait around until we're gone and keep infesting or possessing other people. And I'm reading two books on the topic right now. One is called Demon of Brownsville Road. This family in Pittsburgh was possessed over the course of many years. And the other resource you can kind of point to is Father Gabriel Morth. He recently died. He's Vatican's chief exorcist. He makes a good point about a few different things about demons. One thing is that there is situations where there is infestations and possessions. We should make a distinction. So infestation are like in a house, they're attacked by demons, but not possessed by them. So possessions, a person gets possessed by their spirit. And signs are like they speak languages are different, things they can't know history, historical events or future events. They speak like Latin or Aramaic. They have unusual strength. They have kind of rejection of holy objects. They have all different things about them that are not according to their personality. What you often do with these cases is you take a mental scan of their brain, see if they have epilepsy. If they don't, then they probably are possessed. So he also talks about the fact that demons lie a lot and they know your sins. They can take advantage of your weaknesses, and possessions take many years in some cases to be successful. Demons have all the time in the world to stay around. But if you know who they are, what their names are, you can attack them through love in some cases too. They're fallen angels, and he was always about, love the person, hate the demon. So that is kind of the approach that he takes in these cases.
Now, what have you done for historical research after experiencing your own versions of, just odd occurrences that happened on your walk from paranormal experiences? But when did you start diving in and doing research and coming across one of the stories we're going to be talking about today? And we can slide into this story, but one of the demonic experiences where someone was obviously possessed, from what I'm looking at. I keep seeing demonic infestation on what you sent me, so it just pops up like every third word.
Yeah, I mean, there's categories here because you have possession, infestation, and these are just different ways to approach what's happening in a building. Because you actually get both too. You could have instead of house, you could have a person that's possessed and the house is possessed too. So this whole situation, the house can just have things like blood on the walls. You can have like the rotting flesh smell, things flying around the room. That's infestation of a house. Things that just get destroyed by a demon that's taking control of the house, infesting it, in other words. Person then becomes possessed, they're controlled by another force within their body. That's the difference, I guess you could say.
So similar to kind of like the Amityville situation where the dad just started going crazy because the house was infested and eventually just became part of this dude's subconscious, or just distorted him so much that he ended up killing his whole family. I mean, that's the one reason why nobody wants to live at that house. And it's been, whenever someone mentions a haunted location or something that has to be a severe tragedy like that, it kind of gets imprinted into the walls there.
Even in Hamburg, there's a case I talk about in my ghost walks, the Mixon murders, where this was in 1991. And this guy, Charles Mixon, lights his whole house on fire and kills his whole family. And two daughters were inside the house, burned to death. It's still haunted in Hamburg. Was that infestation case? Was he possessed? He certainly did kill his family, light the whole house, kill his wife too, Linda. She was in there too. So everybody's got the history too of this strange case of Mr. Mixon, his whole family burned them to death.
Was it just chalked up to a homicide or just insane person? Like, couldn't they tell if he like had writing? Because usually someone that's infected or infested with a demonic possession or something, there's some weird behavior that happens beforehand. Whether it's a lot of severe writing, like automated writing over and over again, or just weird things out of character for the original person that kind of makes it suspicious.
Yeah, it didn't seem like anything was like that, but unusual things that happened after that, though. The lead investigator of the case died of a heart attack. Then the guy investigated the fire, if it was arson or not. He died of an aneurysm. Then the prosecutor for the case died in a car accident in his motorcycle. So all of those connected to the case died pretty quickly after it took place. So it's almost like the case itself became possessed.
Have you? I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I actually, through knowing we were going to talk about this, I was looking up just get my interest back up into it, some of the paranormal and just kind of the weird demonic possession stuff. And I saw the real Annabelle doll. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but the one that the movie's based on, and like the procedures of putting this thing in a box and having it blessed with certain symbols and holy symbols around it, and then doing a prayer before they can touch it and transfer it just to another box. And they've been doing this for like I think a couple of decades. I think it's the son-in-law took over the business from the original guy who was doing it. But like the Annabelle movie does, the doll looks nothing like the actual one. It looks like a little child's doll. But it was interesting to see people actually take scans of it using some type of different frequency and noticing that there was this thing or energy that was moving in there because they could tell between a human's energy and then there was this one that they couldn't explain. And just watching it, I mean, it makes you, even if you're not a believer, you get the creeps just being around the thing because after you hear all the stories from it.
Oh, yeah, these demons, they do give me the creeps. They're like, oh, they're just so devious and they lie to you. They know your sins and they infest your whole family. They take one at a time and just do whatever they can to divide and conquer your family. And the kids especially get targeted because they're so innocent, so susceptible to being tricked, and they're often targeted first. And especially women, the name's Mary, to essentially the idea is to pervert Blessed Virgin Mary. They're often targeted too.
One of your stories you had sent me here is 19 Market Street. Do you maybe want to go into a little bit of background about what this story is that you wanted to talk about for some of the viewers out there that are listening that haven't heard of it?
Okay, so this is in Lockport, New York, old Erie Canal town. In 1867, uh, there was an infestation case at this location, the Shack family. There are tailors that lived and worked there. And the previous location for this spot in Lockport was cemetery grounds. Quakers had put burials there for runaway slaves primarily, and some were still there in the 1860s. So by then they needed to put businesses there because it was used to have a cemetery in downtown Lockport. So some were moved, some were kept in the ground. That's sacred ground, basically. Quakers were good people, honorable people. So they thought everyone in the world was equal in the eyes of God. So in 1867, we have a whole bunch of events that take place, all reported in local newspapers, by the way, all documented by two local newspapers. They all have seen this, and they tell us the local newspapers and report it to them. So it all begins December 1st, 1867, and ends December 21st. So for 3 weeks, this happens. Now, three is an important number. It's a trinity, so it's meant to pervert the trinity. That's why the demons are doing this. It also starts every day at 3 a.m., the hour of Satan, because the opposite of the time that Christ died at 3 p.m. So again, it's about perverting the trinity, same kind of thing, 3 a.m. So inside of the house, a number of things start to take place. The family has three girls. And I think what seems to happen here is they're being attacked in their sleep. Is incubus, is that the right word? Robbie, is incubus or succubus? That's going to get this wrong.
Succubus is a demon.
The demon. Okay, so they're being attacked by a succubus, and their clothes are being ripped to shreds. Their bodies are being attacked in their sleep, and it doesn't stop until the 3 weeks are over. Now, I have a list of things we kind of go through that take place. You maybe have the list with you too. So
I do, but you said that so it happens precisely at 9 a.m. and ends
no,
at 3
so it starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m.
ends
3
at
a.m. rather. Yeah.
so it starts at 9 p.m. and ends at 3 a.m.
Let me get this right.
The list
Yeah,
I got here says 9 a.m., 3 p.m.
yeah, 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So 9 is also another sacred number. It's 3 times 3 in your infinity. So it's also perverting the Trinity again. So that's why we're doing that perversion of the Trinity. Holy Spirit, Father, Son, whatever. Yeah. So
So
you have,
the
yeah.
sudden appearance of stains in the woodwork, clothes scattered by unseen hands. Maybe we can walk through some of these things because they seem like they get. I'm assuming they get worse closer to the time that it's going to end. And then afterwards, there's just a break, and then it starts back off at the original time, and then keeps getting worse and worse until the other time.
Right. So in this book, I'm reading The Demon of Brownsville Road, this family that got attacked in Pittsburgh. He would always be able to tell when the demons appear, he could smell them. And demons smell horribly bad. And they also, the thing that they could hear is they can't really hear them as much as they can smell them, I guess you could say.
They smell like sulfur, right?
Yeah, right. Burning
Like like
sulfur.
like Hillary Clinton.
Right. So you have here with unseen forces smelling uh, pretty bad, put on some deodorant. Come on.
Yeah.
Do we have that in the afterlife, don't you think?
Wash a pantsuit every now and again, Hillary. Come on.
Right. Yeah. So we also have broken glass, stains on the woodwork, uh, blood on the walls. And in fact, going back to this case in Pittsburgh, happens there too. They tested this as well. It's actually not even blood. It's like this unusual element that is kind of like blood, but looks like blood. It appears on the walls. They also have three girls, in which their clothes being ripped to shreds. They also, this interesting thing that happened when they were sleeping. So a daughter brings her dress and hangs it up in her room, goes downstairs, goes back upstairs, and her dress is torn to shreds minutes later. Hat turned inside out, feather cut in half, and no one was in the house at the time. Also, one of her fingers was cut off by an unseen force when she was sleeping. And again, these were three girls being attacked by these forces every single night until the day of darkness, December 21st, 1867. And of course, the longest day of the year, longest night of the year, I should say, when usually you have the symbol, it symbolizes the idea that everything is like evil that day, total darkness, and then it stops, and then it doesn't come back, at least for them anyway.
You said December 21st?
Right. So that day is the winter solstice day. So that day is when there's the most darkness in the world. And for Satanists, it's like their holy day, because that is the day that they celebrate the King of Darkness.
My brother's birthday. Oh God, I don't have to rub that in his face.
Yeah, tell him it's the King of Darkness.
You have something in here about the appearance and disappearance of a strange black animal resting on a pot, which I thought was oddly specific. I've heard of black animals, and I know some people who are like kind of more, what's the word? Uh, oh God, what is it when you're not like don't walk under a ladder?
Oh, superstitious?
Yeah, I know some people are superstitious that are talk about black animals kind of being a sign of bad luck or something of that sort. But a black animal resting on a pot is very, very specific. Some of these stories and haunted experiences that you might hear, there's usually something with a black crow or something of that type of style of nature that they talk about seeing right before something bad happens. They're called bad omens.
Yeah, and another thing that can happen with these possession cases is they can possess animals too. They're susceptible to being possessed just like people are. In fact, maybe even more so. And you have with this case, the Brownsville Road case with the Pittsburgh family, their dog would always be able to see the demon. The dog would bark at it and would corner it so they would know where it was so they could try to attack it. So you sometimes have with these possession or infestation cases, the demons can target animals, people, and houses, and no one is spared in these situations.
Do you believe any of these people are safe after they're done with their um, infestation? I mean, after you get someone to exorcise the demon and bless the family, is the family ever really safe? I've heard too many experiences where people are still experiencing small little tidbits later. I think it's the Annabelle family that cares for the Annabelle doll or keeps it safe away from the public. They even talk about that they're like radioactive, basically, in this type of energy that's inside of this doll.
Yeah, I think it can continue with the family. It also continued on the site, where I should mention too, because on the walk, but some really weird things happen on the walk, where my students have taken the walk for extra credit on occasion. And there's this one of the weeks I just did the walk and went back to school on Monday morning. And my student said, Professor Koerner, I got scratched on my chest right over here 3 times. And she said it happened, she knew, on the walk at the site where the possession case had taken place. The next week, another student had taken the walk, and she approached me after class, and she said that she also had been scratched on her chest on the walk. And third week in a row happened another student as well. Three girls, three scratches, just like the three girls that happened from the demonic possession cases back in 1867. She also mentioned too.
Why are they attacking women?
Well, I think it's because the demons hate women. They hate Blessed Virgin Mary. They hate Mary. They hate virginity. They hate purity. And demons don't like, especially Mary herself. So to attack her in three scratches, especially with Trinity, it's always about that. Three is always meant to pervert it, insult the Trinity with bad odors and attacking them because they're women.
How old are you students that were scratched?
Um, 18, 19 years old.
They're virgins? Man,
Well, I don't
what
know.
it's like to be young.
Maybe they're pure, I guess you could say. The idea would be that anyway.
I would
Innocent.
I would be concerned on that one because I feel like in a lot of movies it's usually like the daughter or someone that ends up getting infected or possessed um, in all those types of scenarios. And it's always been strange to me because I don't think you hear a lot of demonic possession stories that happen to like a young boy or something like that. Usually it's a woman in the story.
It's always the girls, yeah. In fact, one of the older ladies came on the walk too. She was with her husband, and the walk was over about 5 years ago. And demons, they like to use foul language. And she said in her ear she heard this voice say, "You're a whore." And she said it didn't upset her, but he just wanted to let me know what had happened. And I said, these demons like to insult people through foul language. I'm sorry that happened to you. You're obviously a very wonderful person. Don't let it get to you.
That's horrible. You mentioned
And even, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
you mentioned with the Lockport one, the Lockport Daily Journal and the Lockport Daily Union had both kind of reported on this story. Which one did you find that did the best reporting? And is it kind of similar to more of the Hollywood style of reporting that we have today, where a lot of stuff gets sensationalized on certain experiences and kind of gets hyped over much or made fun of in a certain way? Did you find honest reporting with this? Because I feel like with a story, if you're demonically possessed, it's like, how do you even prove that besides just mentioning some crazy things that happen to you? It's kind of like calling the cops on a ghost. I mean, if I was the officer, I'd just kind of roll up and be like, why'd you buy the house? You knew it was haunted? I didn't know it was haunted when I moved in.
Yeah. Well, I think at the time these things were more easy to talk about and report on than they are today. And both did a good job. I still have the American film copies of the reports from all the days in 1867. And what's the thing of these, I think interesting about these reports is the direct quotes right from the families. And there's nothing like filtered about them. And every day they go back to the houses. And I think with the reporter, what were the names of the two?
It's the Lockport Daily Journal and the Lockport Daily Union.
Union was the one that did the report first, and then we got word of it and did reporting on back of it. So it's like they said, "Hey, what's going on here? Let's confirm that it happened." So they said, "Well, this is not even happening. Is it true?" So the other newspaper said, "Let's report the story to confirm it." So they both did good work in reporting the story. And what ends up happening here is they interviewed the father, the mother, and the three girls every single day with new reports. They also said this is stuff they could tell them that was easiest to tell. That was the most printable. They actually left out some horrible things that happened to that. So they said this is just things they could put in print. Some of the things even worse than that.
Hmm. Now, at any point, did the family have any other option to do besides experiencing the same things over again? Did they have to finally leave, or did they have to move on, or take care of some type of invite somebody down to cleanse the house, or make it more available when it came to the family standards?
Well, they did move to 19 Spalding Street the following year because I think they probably didn't want to have any members of the place anymore. So they had, I think they closed the shop up the following year. So I wonder if it came back to them the following year because, like you said, things don't always just stay in one spot. because they didn't stay there for more than a year. They went to 19, which is still in the town, but 3 blocks over, 19 Spalding. The 19 Marketplace was eventually turned over to a bookstore. I can mention this too. So the place I begin the walks in Lockport is Lake Effect Ice Cream. And the two guys that own Lake Effect, they told me that when they were kids, that site was a bookstore. I was relaying the story to them about the demonic possession cases at the location. So he said, let me get back to you and ask if anything happened at the store when the owner, when he was there. So Eric got back to me, the owner. He said, the owner of the bookstore, he had weird things happen to him in his backroom area. He come back to work and found that his newspapers and magazines were ripped to shreds, some cases, unseen forces. And it was the same location in these girls' bedrooms where their clothes were ripped to shreds in 1867. So even in the 1980s, there were still reports of unusual things happening. This is a bookstore with things being ripped to shreds long after they had allegedly left the place for 100 years ago.
I see you talk about it right here. It says that, yeah, exactly what you said. But what about, you mentioned things like his books and newspapers were constantly being moved and even torn and shredded by some unseen forces. That was when the bookstore was available in the 1980s. You said it was the DMV.
And now it is DMV, yeah.
Now it's a DMV. Wow, damn. What a fall. I bet those demons are happy there. They tear the hell out of
Yeah.
me every time I
Long
go there.
lines and
Holy.
yeah.
Now, do you think it was because of William Shack's background that he was attacked personally, or do you think it was just landing? He just got in a happenstance landing on that place? Because I noticed you've kind of talked about his carpentry and his tailor work in the Age of Machines. You kind of compare him to a little bit like Jesus, mostly just with the simple noble professions, like obviously working class, and then his Jewish name, and then you talked about something. Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about here. But would you relate that just because of his simple background, like his characteristics kind of stood out to what? I mean, I'm guessing you're assuming the demons they're attacking things that are more Christ-like in men than they would be amongst the common men.
I think a lot of things happened here to make this possible. So first, I think because this was sacred ground for the Quakers, a burial ground where runaway slaves were buried there. So I think that, like the fact it was such a special place, that they were living there in a place that had to be attacked for that first reason. And Quakers, they think everyone is equal in God's eyes. So that place was meant for poor people to be buried there. And some of us were still buried there at that time in the ground. And then you also have the fact that they're a Jewish family. And I think attacking Jewish people would have been easy for them, perhaps only Jewish people in the town. Christ, of course, was Jewish. There's also 3 women in the family that they could attack. That was, I think, interesting because, again, number 3 is important to attack for demons, 3 girls. And I think you mentioned there that he works with his hands like a carpenter, like Joseph would have, Joseph's father. He's his foster father. Also, his name, Shack, means wine pourer. In the Jewish culture, that's a very important, I guess, profession. And of course, Christ turned water into wine. So a lot of things here are important for demons, think symbolically, to just, take care of this and take these people out with the infestation case.
I'm gonna share this before we move on to the UFO story, but this is the first boat photo you sent me. Do you want to describe a little bit about this picture that you came across on one of your walks, and then I can show the second one when you want me to.
Okay. So this is again in Lockport. You'll notice that you have BB 113 on the boat. So it's barge boat 113. Now, if you move the picture to the left a little bit, you can see that I'm there on the left. There you go. Yeah, that's my right hand right over there. So this is, again, October, what was it, 2017, I think was the date for this, 28th, 2017. So we had 85 people there that night doing the Lockport walk. And we never had gone down there before, ever. on the walks. So no one wanted to go home that night. I didn't want to go home either. It was a nice, enjoyable walk. Weather was really good, clear. So my photographer was behind me, taking some pictures. And I walked through there. You can see that I'm right there on the left. And you also can notice that the boat on the lower right, the color of it is like a light, I guess, yellow color.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important for the next thing that happened. So she's right behind me, and I can vouch for the fact that there was no one in front of me. There was no one there. And there's actually a fence on my left. And you go to the end of the boat, and the canal begins there. There's nowhere else to go. You can see if anyone was going to be in front of you. There's just nothing there. So then she steps forward, and you'll notice that she does, because the boat is closer in the picture. You can see only like half the number 113. The boat also changes colors. So we go to the next picture. If you could.
Yep. Let me just
Okay.
see if I can slide it this way. Exit out of that angle. Yeah, the boat went red right there.
Yeah. So now the boat has changed colors. And there's like an orb. You can see that white orb in front of the top of the color. And she stepped forward about maybe 2 feet to take this next picture. You also can see me in the background there. I'm still there. Right over there. Yep. And I'm lined up with this ghostly figure. You can kind of see his face. He's got a beard and one hand behind his back, and he's striding to the kind of into our time. He's a bit lower too. He's probably walking in a different time period, perhaps. But he has this heavy beard, kind of white clothing on. And I looked at this picture, and we're like, oh my God, is anyone here dressed like this? And no one was there dressed like that. I walked right through there, and I know there was no one there. And this picture of this ghost shows up, and you can see, I think the two pictures will show us like why this is a ghost and not something else, because I'd been there.
Now, did you feel anything before you saw it? Did you have any experiences when it came to, I don't know, nausea or any types of feelings of dread or anything like that?
One thing I felt was I had to go down there. I just knew. I said, we have to go down there for some reason. We never gone there ever before. The walks ended, and that was it. We went home. But I said, I'm being called for some reason. We have to just go. I don't know why, but we need to go. And we did. And this picture came up because of it. And I looked at this picture, and I showed this to people down that work on the boats. And they said, this looks like a barge boat captain. They would have worn that kind of clothing to protect them from the oil. They have heavy beards usually. And it makes sense they would have looked like that. And they would have been like a captain of a boat, maybe from that one even.
Now, is there any other things around you that night that happened, or after that occurrence happened, was it just dead silence afterwards? I always wonder if these come in patterns.
Yeah, I mean, other things have happened since then. I've gone to other different times, and I mentioned we use the ghost meters and the ghost communicators, the big bore studios, ghost communication devices. And 3 years ago, we got a message from the ghost that said, "You're holding my photo." So that's exactly what it said. And we also got a message. He's actually sometimes called me Snake several times, which is my Chinese astrological symbol. He said, "I love you, Snake." He also said, "Seduce him" last year on the walks. And he also said his name to us. A psychic had said his name was Michael. And again, last message I got last year, the name Miguel came up. So he's always saying something to me. He definitely is aggressive, might be in love with me. I'm not sure. He's definitely got some things to say to me. But it's always something new he mentions. The second to last week, this was last year, he said, "You're early, 1 week early." And I said, "I know, we'll be back next week." So he's always got things to say to me whenever we're there. But I think what's interesting about this is that whenever we show people, like, oh my God, it's just they've never seen something so bright and just obviously it's a ghost because you can see the previous picture. There was nothing there. The boat's not that color, and you can see the boat has changed colors in the new picture. And I'm right lined up with him. You can kind of see I walk right through him, and they'll have the number 113, a spooky number as well. So, what do you think about the picture of it? What do you think? What is your impressions of it?
I think it's interesting for sure. I mean, I give you credit for just going out there at night. I'm not afraid of the dark or anything, but I don't know. I wouldn't be hanging around a ship like that in the middle of the night.
Right.
I think it's very interesting. I wonder what this is right here. That's also sparked up my curiosity a little bit, but I can't tell because over here I'm trying to look over here. Where do you see the ghost person at? I'm not seeing that.
Okay, so
I see
like
you
like go down
down.
and
We're
like
dealing with
keep.
Google Pictures right now. Where exactly at? I don't have full control of this thing.
So he's like one hand behind his back, left arm out, right hand behind his back.
Over
He's
here.
wearing white. No, down.
Down.
He's like next to the boat.
Oh, he's next to the boat. Is he on the boat or below it?
No, he's right next to it. He's like walking right there.
Hold on a second. Let me turn the brightness up on my screen.
So you can see like his face, his beard, his clothing.
Hold on. You don't. Oh, are you on your phone right now?
Yeah.
Damn it! I was about to say you could annotate on the screen to draw it for me so I can see where you're looking at.
So like right there.
Right here. All right. Right. Look at my cursor. Where am I going?
Go to the left. Right. More, a little more. Right there. Down. You don't see that person there?
No, but my eyesight's shit. I can't do word searches for shit either.
So it's a person in white with one hand behind his back, striding, looking to the boat towards the boat. He's got a beard.
I'll have to play it back and look at it. I see you and I see the girl.
Okay, which girl?
The one in the green.
So there's a figure has a white like coat on and looking towards the boat. That's the ghost.
Wait, what? What are you looking at, John? I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at. This is killing me because I'm colorblind, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so there's a person that's like standing next to the boat.
Yes, see this person right here. This woman.
That's the ghost.
This is the ghost?
Yeah.
We're in the green. That's green. That's not white.
Okay. To me, it looks white. Okay. I can see it's green now. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Is that's still the same person?
Yes, that's the ghost.
That's the ghost?
Yeah.
That looks like a middle-aged woman, John.
I think it looks like Billy Joel from Green Day.
That's great. That's fucking hilarious. All right, now I see what you're talking about. I was wondering. I was like, how is this so obvious for you? It's like I'm looking all in the backdrop, and then I keep staring at that light that's all the way in the background.
I can see the green. Yeah, that's him or her. You think it's a girl? Okay,
that's 100% a woman, dude. Look at the hips.
I never thought of that. I mean, that's why this changed everything. That's why she's in love with me now. I get it. It's not a man.
Does that make you feel better? I'd be more flattered if it was a guy.
See, I always thought that was a beard there. You think it's hips? Okay.
I thought you knew this person was part of your group.
No, that's not from our group. So you see, the thing is, I was walking through there. Then Amanda, our photographer, she was walking through there too. and there was no one between us. And the first picture shows there was no one there. Then this person, male or female, enters into our time. You can see how it changed the color of the boat. You can see the orb there too, and looking at the boat too.
I wonder, is that symbol right there on the side of the boat on the other picture too? It is. What is that symbol?
That I think that's just when you connect the boat to a harness. I think just like a
I know the
latch.
lighting from the camera is probably making it like bright white, but it just looks weird.
This is a revelation. So you think it's a girl? Okay.
Dude, that's clearly a woman with her hand on her stomach, and then she probably looks like she's holding a cigarette in her left hand. That's how people hold cigarettes, with their cigarette down like that.
I feel so much better now, Robbie, and you've changed my life completely.
I don't know what hairstyle she's rocking though, because that ain't a hairstyle I've ever seen before.
The hair might be coming down over her face. Yeah.
From this photo, it looks like there is something going on in her hair where it's like trying to turn into something. This is weird.
You can see like an old hairstyle there. Yeah.
Well, thank God I'm seeing what you're seeing now. Jesus, I was sitting there looking in the backdrop. I was like, damn, I gotta get my eyes checked, dude.
That was funny. We couldn't get that because I can see that it's green. I can see that it's mostly green. Yeah.
It might be white, but I don't know what your photographer is using for a flash.
Yeah, this was just her cell phone camera that she was using. That was it.
I'm gonna have night mode on. All right, I'm glad we got that discovered. Oh, damn, that's a nice ship too. I wonder what kind. Did you look up what the ship was?
It's a barge boat, so
Okay.
that they would use that for oil transportation on the Erie Canal, and it's actually an original ship. It's not a replica, and that's in at the end of the canal. If you go in Lockport, right at the very end, and it's so strange because I was like, oh, we gotta go down there for some reason. I want to just go. Never done ever been in the tours, and you can see from the first picture, I'm walking through there and there's no one there. And then she takes a second picture and this woman shows up in the picture and there she is entering our time, smoking a cigarette and just having a good old time walking through into our time.
Whispering in your ear.
Yeah, because she has
I
said,
wonder if you have
I
other
love you.
photos of
Thanks.
that person too. Do you have any other photos from this walk?
I have other photos from subsequent walks that we've done down there. Yeah.
I meant just from this specific walk.
Oh, from this one? No.
I'd like to know if they followed you or if it was something that was still in the area.
One thing we did do, I should mention, the following year, it was 2 years. We went back and did like a special, like try to call the ghost back to have some fun with him. And we put down some mandrake on the ground and did some investigating. And we got some other pictures of some unusual shapes and orbs and ectoplasm and stuff that came into these different pictures about 2 years after the event. So I don't have those with me right now, but we did that one other time to see if we could bring him back. And actually, I could say now bring her back to talk to us. But there's always the things that they say to me, like come back next week or seduce him or you're holding my picture, lover. So I always get these messages from this ghost every single week. One said divorce, marriage. I am married, so I got that one time too. So this ghost is obsessed with me for some reason.
I get the same messages from people when I go out behind work and there's a bunch of homeless people that live back there. They always say things like food, money, I'll stab you. And I'm like, wonderful.
Not the same level of interest, but
I would take ghosts over that. Holy shit.
Definitely take ghosts over that any day.
Let's talk about this art one you sent me over here. Now it's this one, correct?
That's it. Yeah.
So this is the UFO one, and it's specifically this story right over here that says, I'm looking at all the other ones. Supervisors create second children's court judgeship, attempt to dump problems of Mideast on U.S. suspected. When is this article?
So it's April 8th, 1956.
Oh
it's
my
right
God, they predicted us. They foreshadowed us problems in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it's the airliner chases bright light miles. Oh, come on, zoom in properly.
You
There we
got
go.
it there. Yep.
There. Airliner chases bright light miles across the state. Object streaks ahead of Con Air at 800 miles per hour. This is absolutely real, pilot declares. All right, do you want to explain a little background about this?
Yeah. So this is, as I said, April 8th, 1956. And in this time period, there was much less stigma about talking about UFOs, especially pilots. They're encouraged to report things to newspapers, their families, even to Congress, investigated these different things. So American Airlines left New York City at 9:30 p.m. and they were headed for Buffalo Airport. And around 10:20 or so, they're just east of Syracuse. And Captain Raymond, let me get the names right, Raymond Ryan and William Neff, they see a large, bright, glowing triangle 90 degrees in front of them, making a 90-degree turn right in front of them. And it goes in to make a fixed point turn and forms it to one light and then goes back and forth in front of them at 900 miles an hour. And this does this, dancing back and forth in front of them, forming one light, then three lights, just over and over, just this crazy light show in front of them east of Syracuse. Then they radio into Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome to report the UFO. And they tell them, this isn't one of ours. So we're tracking it, but it's not anything we know what it is. And then they tell them, go follow it, go track it. That's funny. You track it, you know? So they tell these captains, you know, the first officer, you know, see if you can figure out what it is. Just follow it to Buffalo if you can, so they can get someone up there from the Air Force Base to see what it was as well. Because it wasn't anything from the Air Force Base, it was a UFO. So the story continues. So they keep going towards Buffalo, and they only have a certain amount of gas, of course, to get to Buffalo. And the UFO starts to play some games with it. It starts to go north towards Lake Ontario. And Ryan decides what he needs to do. Should he follow it towards Canada or go to Buffalo? So he decides to go to Buffalo instead and lands safely on the night of April 8th, 1956. But that's not the whole story. So he, at that point, he calls into the Buffalo Evening News, tell the entire story to some reporters there. He says, UFO is absolutely real. I'm convinced there was something fantastic up there. And the first captain, first officer says the same thing. There's other reports that the stewardesses, other are interviewed too by the newspaper reporters. They get their statements as well. They also saw this went back and forth in front of the aircraft, the entire ride until they parted ways near Rochester. And this was all documented in April 8th edition on the front page, the Buffalo Evening News. The story also continues too. So they also told the story to the TV show Meet the Millers, and this is a popular show at the time on late night shows were 1950s kind of a cool thing to do, interviewing people, cool stories, and this program did that kind of thing. And the captain was there with the first officer. They talked about the story on national television, and they even tried to get Congress to investigate the incident, but they didn't follow enough with it to the Congress. They tried to, but they dropped the story. But it did become kind of a national sensation for a while in 1956. One more thing we can mention too. So that night as well, in Buffalo to the south, there's a route called 219. And it seems like the UFO was down there too. Some part of the story continues in the newspaper report that they also saw it darting back and forth in the southern tier as well that night. About 10:30 p.m., they noticed that it was still following motorists in the south of Buffalo as well. So the entire state kind of experienced this all the way from New York to Syracuse, to Rochester, Buffalo, on the night of April 8th, 1956. And the newspaper had the courage, I think we should honor them and respect them, and they had the courage to report this on the front page on that day of April 8th, 1956.
I wonder about that with the early time reporting on that, if they got in any trouble or had to do a reprint.
Yeah, interesting because they did this anonymously. No one put their name in the story. It was not anonymously done. So the newspaper reporters, they did the reporting, but didn't actually put their names on it. As you can see in the front page there, there's no one attributed to the story. It's all written anonymously.
Did
So they,
is the second one still do it the same one?
yeah, that's a continuation of the story there. That's the jump into the other page.
That is weird that no one put their name on it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy that they wouldn't want to contribute their name to the story? Maybe they felt that if they did, they'd be ostracized or criticized for being reporters that got the story.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I'm happy about the whole UAP stuff that's happening now is because the Robertson panel was a team of scientists and researchers that were actually esteemed researchers that never dealt with UAP subjects before, but were open to the idea of exploring about it. And a lot of those members and committees were doomed to fail and got made fun of and criticized by their colleagues and lost some of their pension and stuff like that because universities just didn't want to be associated with them. And some of them committed suicide. So, you know, I'm glad the conversation's turning around. I just wish it didn't take so long to do this because I'm sure there's a lot of misreporting when it came to just things that weren't being reported accurately. Number of witness experiences of UAPs, only because for the longest time we just didn't accept that that was even a thing. Little did we know that there was a whistleblower program or a program where pilots could talk about what they see when they're flying around. And it's actually more common that pilots are seeing these orbs or things that they can't explain, moving at such high velocities and speeds and turning at such sharp trajectories.
Even like President Reagan, he saw twice when he was once governor and once president, unexplained objects that were darting back and forth in front of his aircraft. So he was open to talk about. Carter also saw the same thing. Carter saw a UFO report. He saw a UFO in front of him when he was with some of his friends at one of his family events that darted back and forth in the sky. So Carter and Reagan both have been open about seeing unidentified objects when they're either presidents or when Carter president when Reagan was governor.
Even John Lennon did, but that might be attributed to a lot of acid that he was taking at the time.
Yeah, it might not have been a UFO. It would have been something different.
Bad trip. What are your thoughts on the whole disclosure agreement that's kind of happening now? I mean, we just had our JFK hearings. As a JFK researcher, I don't know if you saw or watched any of that. It was not what I think any of us wanted out of that. It became a more modern day political issue, bringing up tweets of Jim DiEugene talking about Trump, and they kind of really tried to turn it all on Trump. Little did the Congress people know that most JFK researchers are not for Trump. They are Democrats or they are
Yeah.
liberal in the sense. So Jefferson Morley and everyone else made that very, very clear after the questioning started diving into the Trump stuff. But to me, it was like, we're here to talk about JFK files. Let's talk about JFK files, not modern day political issues, what Trump has reversed or criticizing anything of this administration, Trump or Biden. But the UAP hearings, I've seen a little bit more of leniency and openness and discussion about those, which is interesting. Um, but I mean, what are your thoughts about the whole acknowledgement and the kind of turnaround that's been really the past couple of years since whistleblowers and people started stepping forward and really addressing things to Congress?
And I think it's great because people have the courage to go forward and talk about things they never have been able to do before. And I think it's good this idea of more acceptance of UFOs and conspiracy facts, not theories, about these different cases about like JFK or Robert Kennedy or Malcolm X, that we can use these hearings as platforms to talk about the truth and not cover up these conspiracies with theories and not facts.
What about the recent file releases when it came to the JFK stuff? Do you think that's going to open up disclosure to a whole other area when it comes to other subjects as well too? You know, the government has looked into paranormal experiences as well, and certain types of testing in that area. So I wonder if that you think that's going to open up to broader fields of view. I mean, I hate to lump the JFK subject into that, but at the same time, I kind of think that it has a trickle down effect because of the fact that we're getting exposed so much when it came to the JFK subject in our government that I think there's going to be a lot more openness in what the government has looked at and examined rather than just ignoring it or disproving those claims.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to get some of these files out. I looked at one that I thought was interesting. from the recent disclosure. There was this guy named Gary Underhill, and he was an agent. Did you see about this? Yeah, he was an agent of the CIA, and he had been one of their people that disappeared people and was good, good company man that would always do what he was told. And he was found shot to death. You know, I guess they said it was a suicide, but he was shot twice in the head or something like that.
You know who printed that first?
Did you print that? Yeah.
No, Jim Mars.
Or Jim Mars did that.
I made
Yeah.
a clip about Gary Underhill about a year ago using almost a similar memo, just with a couple redactions.
Yeah, he said the agency did this. It was I remember the click or something. He was the word that he used that killed the president.
Well, it makes me look at some of the claims that Jim Mars made about, like, I think Jim Mars even talked about UFOs at a point, but a lot of his witness deaths that he had listed, I'm kind of looking at him like, damn, if he got that one right. I'm just saying, I'm not going to start tossing them all out with the bathwater, because I've only been able, I think the HSCA only concluded 21 suspicious deaths that they decided to look into. And then they gave her 13 minutes to talk about the whole mysterious deaths. That's all the HSCA focused on, even though we got 6 hours of Marina Oswald telling me I don't fucking know over and over again, which is nuts. But it was funny because when they were actually discussing it and she rattled off the list, they're like, yeah, we'll submit our statistics and research to be able to conduct the full analysis to the committee. And then that's never been submitted. But I'm like, how do you even test the statistical probability of 40 something or 100 something witnesses dying within a couple of year period that were involved in being a witness to the JFK assassination? I was like, I don't even know how you would calculate that on a calculator, or what type of algebra or Pythagorean theorem you'd be using. But apparently the HSCA figured it out.
Well, I mean, you have like Lee Bowers, for example. He saw the person on the grassy knoll shooting. He testified this several times for investigative committees. He's found dead with suspicious circumstances just after the assassination. Lee Bowers, a good example of this. Rose Laramie?
Rose Laramie, yeah.
Laramie. He was the person that knew ahead of time. She was found suspiciously dead too. All these different people that we could just probably account for being part of the cover-up. They were killed.
I never thought Oswald knew Ruby at all, but I know there's like maybe 2 claims out there about that. One comes from Judith Vary Baker, which I just, no, sorry, I'll look at a different one. But then one's like an anonymous subject that mentions Jack Ruby knowing Lee Harvey Oswald. And then there's like Bill DeMar that mentioned it. But I have so many people that said he wasn't there, where I'm like, I mean, how do you, because there's like, how many white guys that were like 20 years old rocked the same style back then? Everyone had a fucking receding hairline. And then like they're wearing like, I don't know, like some type of weird shirt or white shirt or so it's like so hard to define these things. That's why I wish when we have these types of hearings, whether it's a UAP hearing, whether it's a JFK hearing, we could just get like the best thing that ever happened at the JFK hearing was the one guy that was like, I'm just going to give you the time to tell me what you want to tell me. And that's where you got to rattle off for like 10 minutes, both of them, talk about the autopsy and stuff like that. I was like, that's what every congressperson should have did. You know, we don't have this open transparency anymore. Whether we talk about these, I would prefer them not be in a joke format, if you catch my drift. And I'm sure you would appreciate that as well, too. I mean, just from people that are interested in these subjects, whether it's the JFK research, whether it's UAP research, whether it's talking about paranormal experiences. I mean, how many people do we have that could be doing a way better job than the Ghost Hunter show and trying to turn it into a Hollywood thing? We could have actually had a real scientific investigation, go down and conduct and have a hearing about the certain findings of things and open it to the public, just so things can get clear a little bit in the air.
Yeah, the House Investigative Committee that concluded there was a second gunman in the 70s. Watching the interesting thing about this, the impetus for that was this film called Executive Action. It came out in the 1970s. Ever see this movie?
That's the one the HSCA used for the mysterious deaths.
Right. So watching this movie, it goes through how Oswald was set up, with the behind the gun. It wasn't even him, and going to shooting ranges, pretending it was him, and just making an ass of himself, buying a car, these fake Oswalds that were just meant to make him into a patsy. And I think that film, Executive Action, is worth watching. You want to see how the government kind of lined up this man to take the fall for the shooting.
Yeah, I just found, digging through the HSCA testimony, I'm doing clips on Marina right now, and she mentioned a friend of Lee's in Russia and talked about, his name is Polev Koklachev or some Kolaknichev or something like that. Found the guy, found the letter that Lee wrote to him, and found the letters that he wrote to the Oswald family after the assassination happened, talking to Marina. He did an interview in 1992. It's a Russian documentary. I'm the only person that did this, but I dubbed it into English. So we have it in an English format. He does mention some things. He does not believe Oswald was a CIA agent, but he does believe that he's been, I think, after when he was interviewed in 1992, after the House Select Committee, he started researching the assassination, and he noticed that there was a number of mysterious deaths that happened. Bill Hunter, Jim Cothy, others that kind of passed away. And his conclusion wasn't that Oswald was CIA, but his conclusion was that Oswald was not a good shot. And Oswald, like, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And then also that there was a guy that came up to him known as Kostakov that said that, apparently Oswald had been there 2 weeks. They worked at the same factory in Minsk. There's photos of them together and all that. But he had mentioned that this case officer came up to him, said that this person has become friendly with you. We need you to give all the information you possibly can on him and watch over him for the next 2 weeks. We're going to meet here and talk about these certain conversations you have with this man. Whether they're spying on Oswald because they thought he was a double agent, I don't know. But it was just interesting to me to hear that, because the only available recording is in Russian, and then hearing it in English, because there's so many apps out there now you can just dub stuff. I had it dubbed 7 times to make sure I was getting the proper stuff. So it came back the same thing 7 times. So I'm going to assume that's correct. But I think there's a lot of available information through the HSCA that probably was never fully looked at by researchers. I mean, if you're listening to Marina's testimony after 20 minutes, you're tossing that sucker out just because, like, you're like, damn, got married within 6 weeks. I mean, the guy even said, he's like, is it normal for a woman your age to get married 6 weeks into knowing a guy? And Marina's like, oh, when you're my age, you don't really care. He goes, did you love Lee? And she couldn't say yes. He was nice. Well, 5 minutes ago, you're telling me he's beating the hell out of you. So which is it? Is he nice? And then he throws a punch. But if you look at the factual thing, the accounts of witnesses, there's one account of someone noticing bruises on Marina. And all the other ones, people just said, oh, she had like a hurt this or hurt that. And they were from other instances that happened, not Lee's direct involvement. There was only one account of Lee actually being seen hitting her. But apparently they beat each other up, because she admitted in a prior interview to the HSCA that she used to hit Lee all the time and belittle him in front of George de Moorenschild and his family. And that's in George's testimony. So there's a lot of things about the Oswald crazy motive and this type of stuff where we got to take a bigger examination into things. And I think my next step here is I'm going to be probably examining more about the UFO claims. I've done a lot of UFO episodes in the past, but re-looking through some of the hearings, even if you've heard them over and over and over again, you pick up little details that are different. I think there's plenty in the historical record when it comes to UAP subject that we've probably just glossed over.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about there. I mean, with Oswald especially, I'm kind of obsessed with the Tippit murder that with my Four Guns book. I think that kind of shows how he got set up and was run, completely, as a patsy. Because we talked about this with the Four Guns discussion, that he's at the Texas Theater at the time, proving that he's there between 103 and 107 with Butch Burroughs. And 1:15 p.m., Tippit gets shot. So I have always wondered, like, who was the one that actually shot Tippit? Because whoever we can find, whoever that was, that's a conspiracy right there.
I've
or
always
one or two people.
I've always said that Oswald either shot at General Walker or didn't shoot at General Walker, and then he shot at Kennedy or didn't shoot at Kennedy. It can't be all those things. And I think with the Walker shooting, he was never a suspect. It was until that note was found by Marina, or when he told Marina that he shot at Walker. But I think he was just getting the attention for that. I don't think he actually did that, if he did say that to her and George de Moorenschild. But one thing that's interesting about the Tippit shooting is that the person allegedly leaned over through the right front vent window to talk to this person. You know what that is? The right front vent window? That's not the actual window. It's the little triangle window that's
the triangle that opens up. Yeah,
that pushes out. I'm like, if you're a cop, why the fuck are you stopping somebody through the right front vent window? Unless you know this person. If you're making an arrest, get out of the car and make the arrest. Or you're going to say something, roll down your window, hey, what are you doing? You look suspicious. But not through the right front vent window. That's like, are you my contact? Are you who I'm meeting? That's really, like I said, that's an area of Tippit I really don't talk about. But for me, that was, I think, one thing the HSCA, when I asked Blakey about it, just he couldn't, never came to a conclusion on that one. But I think it's even with the HSCA, they proved that they could not identify the casings that were found at the Tippett scene to Oswald's gun, which is like one of the most important things. If you're going to say he used that pistol a couple minutes earlier to go kill a cop, and then he's sitting in a theater.
Yeah, you can't tie him to the gun or tie him to the crime scene.
Can't tie anything to him. That's the funny thing.
And I mean, that is the whole basis of arresting him, that he killed Tippett. And if he didn't kill Tippett, then he didn't kill the president. There was no reason to kill the president because he was doing this allegedly to cover up his crime, running from the crime scene. And everything just falls out of place if you can't prove that one fact to killing the JD Tippett. And everything, if you can kind of prove who killed Tippett, you can then prove, I think, who was in the plot to kill the president. You can go right back to that.
I'm right now just trying to make sure there's something out there, testimony wise or record based wise, that people can just Google and find it. Because it's getting confusing as hell trying to ask. You get a lot of information from people's books. I'm not saying that the books are wrong, but you also need to look at other sources too. Because there's a lot of people that have biases and certain things. They don't want this being true or this being true, so they just don't talk about it. And if you're new to the research case, whether it's UAP subjects, paranormal subjects, any of these types of things, get your resources from everything, people. People I've spoken to, obviously, I appreciate our conversations and other conversations I've had with researchers on the JFK, RFK, any of those subjects. And it's just an informative insight into when you're starting to do your own looking through testimony and stuff like that. You can kind of sense when something's not right. Not in the author's work, but more in the testimony factors. I mean, we learned so many things through documentation now, and there's so much things about the case you're not going to remember it all. So don't feel like, if you forgot this little detail, it's just not going to happen. But that's what the importance is about keeping the memory alive and still talking about these historical things. Because, yeah, it all impacts everything. I mean, JFK made a statement about secret societies, and he also made a statement about extraterrestrial life, if there is some out there. So it seems like that's a theme with most presidents. But, John, I don't want to keep too much of your time here because I'll keep ranting. Where can people find your links to your paranormal site and also to where people can find your books as well, too?
My website, paranormalwalks.com, has actually has a section called Gallery. We can see the photographs we talked about today and also the pictures of the photographs from the front page of the articles for the UFO reports. Also, Amazon has my books about JFK Jr., Four Guns book we talked about with the previous interview. So yeah, that's all there. Barnes & Noble has them too.
I'll have to have you back on to talk about JFK Jr. because I know we've been talking about that for a while.
Oh yeah,
never done it.
That'd be fun to talk about too again because that was in July coming up, anniversary of July 16th. Or in the summer, we can update some stories about what's going on with that case too.
Well, John, I appreciate the time you gave me to talk on my show, and thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned for our next episode.